This is test 2 solution. So we have an ABC sequence set of voltage feeds a balanced three-phase Y to Y system. So what that means, I have a Y source feeding a Y load. Oh, I already jumped the gun. I can see. Because it's not just connected straight forward. It says the line here, each one of these lines is 1 plus 1J. So you have a 1 ohm and 1J. If this is C, this is capital C, capital N, small n. If this is A, this is B here. So A will go like this, going through 1 ohm, going through 1J, going through capital A. B, 1 ohm, 1J, and this is capital B. The load self, each one of these, it's 10 plus 10J. We'll call that Z here. Z equals 10 plus 10J. If the load voltage, VAN, if this voltage, capital A, capital N, that's this voltage right here, VAN, if that's equal to, is given the problem, 110 angle 30, can you find the voltage, the line voltage? Can you find VAB, VBC, and VCA? That's really what the question is. Now, what I would have done with this, I would have just took one phase of that. And if I take one phase of that, this is what I see. I see a voltage source here of a value VAN. I don't know what that number is. AN right here. It's going through a 1 ohm. It's going through a 1J. It's going through Z here. And this is N, and this is capital N. And I know the voltage here to be what? 110 angle 30. So if I know what VAN, I know what VAB. Well, how can I find VAN? To find VAN, if I know what the current going through that, I know the voltage and I know the impedance, I know what Z is, I can find this current, which is I sub AN, which happens to be the same current going through the whole thing. It's only one branch. That current is going to be the same. So let me find that current. I sub AN is going to be the voltage, which is VAN divided by Z. And what is VAN? 110 angle 30 divided by, what is Z, which is 10 plus 10J. Now I'll go to my calculator now, and I'll push these buttons on it. 110 angle 30 divided by 10 and 10J. And my calculator is saying to me this is 7.778, how about 78 angle negative 15. If I know that, then I know what the voltage drop here. So VAN, small an, it's going to be the drop right here, because the current's going this way, is going to mark this plus to minus. This is plus to minus, so they're going to add up. It's going to be 1 plus 1J times I sub AN plus that voltage here, which is 110 angle 30. So let me do that, do the math, times 1 plus 1J, add to it. So this is 11 angle 30 plus 110 angle 30. And when you add them, it's the same angle. So that should be what? 121 angle 30. The question wasn't what is VAN, it was what is VAB. So meaning what? If you put a digital multimeter here, this is plus to minus here, this is plus to minus here, this is plus to minus. If I put a voltage meter here to measure that voltage, M, this is the plus, this is the minus, what is it going to read? Well, if you do KVL right here, you'll find out it's what? It's VAN minus VBN. We derived the equation for that. So VAB, which is VAN minus VBN. Or we have a shortcut for that. You take VAN, you multiply it by the square root 3, the magnitude of that. You take the angle theta, and what do? Add 30 degrees to it. So when you do that, you're going to have 121 times the square root of 3, and the angle will be 60, which is what?
$209.6.
209.6, angle 60. That's VAB. You want VBC? It's the same number, 209.6. But now what do? You subtract 90 degrees from this one. So what are you going to have? Is it 120? I mean, subtract, let's say 90? 120. Subtract 120 from that, which is what? 60 minus 120. And the next one, you subtract another 120 from this. Is that 180? VAB, VBC, VCA. Done. So that's question 1. Question 2. This is what we have. We have V1, which I did not give you a value for because I don't need it. I can use any number. 2. J4. And put the dot here. Two, negative J, or 1J, 2, and this is V out. V1 was, I don't have it. I have a current this way, I sub 1 in the problem, and I current this way, which is I sub 2. I also know the mutual inductance between them on the top, which is 2J. And the question for this, find the ratio. It's called the voltage gain. which is equal to the ratio of V out to V1. Is your voltage, the ratio, the amount coming out of this, 2 times this, half of this, a third of this, 5 times this? What are we looking for? Which means it doesn't matter where you put there, based on this, once I know that ratio, if it's 7, that says this voltage will be 7 times that number. If it's 0.2, it says this voltage will be 0.2 that number. So let me do a mesh equation for the first loop. Loop 1, negative V1 plus 2 times I sub 1 plus 4j times I sub 1. Now the mutual inductance. The mutual inductance is what? 2 times I sub 2. And let's look at that. When I did this, I was traveling in this loop in this direction. So I marked this plus to minus, because I'm traveling this way, I sub 1.
So you want to put the mutual as 2j, right? I sub 2?
Yeah, the mutual is 2j, yeah.
So you put S equal to I sub 2.
Oh, 2j, oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yep. 2j here, I sub 2. And now the question, is it minus or positive? So we have to look and see. Now let's look at I sub 2. I sub 2 is going to enter the dot. It's going to mark the dot what? Positive. This end negative. Which means the dot here will be positive. This end will be negative. Is that the same direction I was going or backward? It looks like it's backward. I was traveling this way, that's plus to minus, but this one's minus to plus. That's the subtractions. So equation number 1, when I clean it, it says what? 2 plus 4j I sub 1 minus 2j I sub 2 equals V1. That's equation 1. Let's take a look at loop 2. Loop 2 right here. So I'm going to travel in this direction. So it's going to be plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. I'm traveling clockwise. Oh, I forgot to write the value of the second inductor, which is what? 2j? Okay, so that would be what? 2j times I sub 2 plus 2 times I sub 2 minus 1j I sub 2 plus 2 times I sub 2. All of this. Now again, the mutual inductance. Let's see what's going to happen. Where's my eraser? White out. Let's see what happens here. The current is coming from the top. That means through this inductor, this is going to be 2j I sub 1 here. And the question, is it positive or negative? Let's see. The current is going to come down, it's going to mark this positive, negative. Which means the dot is going to be negative, so this is going to be negative, this is going to be positive. Look at the direction. I was going plus to minus, but this is minus to plus, so that's going to be a minus 2. Now clean that equation. 2j I sub 1 equals 2 plus 2, that's 4. Is it 4 plus 1j? Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. And now I have two equations by two unknowns. Maybe I can solve for I sub 1. What is I sub 1? Divide this by 2j. So that's 4 plus 1j divided by 2j. And it's in polar 2.062 roughly, angle Negative 76 degrees approximately, I sub 2. That's my second equation. Now use substitution. Come here and plug it in. So you plug it in, you take I sub 1 out, and you put this one in. 2 plus 4j times I sub 1. Oh, in place of I sub 1, I'm going to write what? I'm going to write 2.062 negative 76 I sub 2 minus 2j I sub 2 equals V1. Notice they both have I sub 2 in them. If I do the math, this times this minus the 2j minus the 2j this is 9 angle 0. It just happens to be 9 on the money. I sub 2 is equal to V1, which means I sub 2 equals V1 over 9. Why am I interested in I sub 2? Because the question, what is V out? V out is what? 2 times I sub 2. V out equals 2 times I sub 2. V out equals 2 times, what is I sub 2? We said V1 over 9, is it? V out equals 29 V1, and you want V out over V1? 2 over 9. So V out over V1, 2 over 9. What is 2 divided by 9? 0.22 angle 0 if you want to. So they are going to be in phase. It's going to be 2/9 of the value. Again, unless I made a mistake multiplying these numbers, I'll double check them just to make sure. 2 comma 4 times 2.062 negative 76 minus the 2j when I did the approximation, before I carried all the numbers, I got a different answer now. Instead of 9, I got 11.44 angle negative 2. Let me double one more time. 2 comma 4. I told you I'm the worst person with calculators. 2.062 angle negative 76. I think that was a 76, right? Okay. Minus, minus, I already put the minus here. I got to put the 2j now, just 2. 0 comma 2. Not a minus, minus 2. Yep, my mistake. I must have put minus, not put minus 2j. I think the answer is 9.85. The angle is not 0. 9.85 angle negative 23.9. So this is 9.85 angle negative 23.9. Now let's go to the next page. V out equals 2 times I sub 2. This is what I sub 2 is. So let's repeat that part. V out equals 2 times I sub 2. 2 times, which is V1 over, what was it, 9.85, angle negative 23.9. So V out equals 2 divided by 9.85, angle negative 23.9 times V1. Two divided by that number, it is 0.2122, rounding, angle 23.9, about 24 degrees almost. What's V out over V1? Approximately 24 degrees. 0.2, 23.96, yep. It's 0.203, actually, I don't know why I said 103. 0.203 angle, 23.99, 24 degrees. So that tells you the voltage is going to shrink, there's going to be a little shift in the phase there. And the last one, the last question, let me see what the last question here. Number 3, angle 0, 1, negative 1J, ideal transformer, this is a dot here, 1 to 1, negative 2J, 2 ohms, 2 ohms, and the question, what is V out? Find V out. And V1 was defined this way, and V2 was defined this way.
Do you mind assigning the current clockwise?
I sub 1, I sub 2. So V out is going to be what? 2 times I sub 2. So if I know what I sub 2, I'm done. So let's find first the first relationship. What's V out to V1? What's I sub out to I sub 1? Because if you do KVL right here, if you do the first loop here, what you have is what? Loop 1, negative 24 angle 0, plus 1 I sub 1, minus 1J I sub 1, plus V1, right? Plus the voltage drop here. Now this is what? 2 times I sub 1 plus I sub 2, minus I sub 2, not plus, minus. I sub 1 is going down, I sub 2 is going which way? Up. If I clean that, 24 angle 0 equals. Let's look at I sub 1. I get 2, 3 minus 1J. Let's look at I sub 2. Do we have anything? Just the 2, right? Minus 2 I sub 2 plus V1. Let's look at loop 2. Loop 2 is right there, traveling this way. So we'll begin negative V2 minus 2j times I sub 2 plus 2I sub 2 plus 2 times I sub 2 minus I sub 1. I will have V2 equals, for this one. Let me look at I sub 1. Is that negative 2 I sub 1? And the j, the I sub 2, we have what? 2, 4 minus 2j. And now I got to find some relationship between V1 and V2. Well, let's look at that transformer. Notice the polarity, the direction of the dot, the plus minus V1, V2. That tells me the ratio of V1 to V2 equals the ratio of N1 to N2. Since these are ones, that's a 1 that says V1 equals V2. So I can come back and make this V2, and I can eliminate actually one of the equations already. I'll do that. Or I can make this V1. Now, what about I sub 1 to I sub 2? We said before, if both current enter the dots, then it's negative, right? Here, one enters the dot, one leaves the dot. So the ratio of I1 to I sub 2 is positive N2 to N1. And that's a 1 that says I sub 1 equals I sub 2.
The answer key has the...
Yep, they have actually negative V1 to V2, which is a mistake, because the polarity is the same direction. They have V1 to V2 equals minus 1 instead of plus 1. That should have been a plus 1. That's why you have a minus here on their solution. They have a minus V1, should have been a plus V1. So now if we do that substitution, since V1 equals V2 and I sub 1 equals I sub 2, I can truncate these to two equations by two unknowns. If I1 equals I sub 2, this will be 3 minus 1j I sub 1 minus 2 I sub 1, because I sub 1 equals I sub 2, plus V2. You know what? Let me find I sub 2. Let's solve in terms of I sub 2. How is that? Because we don't need I sub 2. Why am I solving for I sub 1? So I sub 2 equals I sub 1. Make that an I sub 2 plus, make that a V2 equals 24 angle 0. And this equation, I sub 2 and I sub 2, that will be what? Negative 2 I sub 2 plus 4 minus 2j I sub 2 equals V2. There's two equations by two unknowns. I just did the substitution. I let V1 equals V2. And I let I sub 1 equals I sub 2. Now I just got to solve it. This will give me what? 2 minus 2j I sub 2 equals V2. That's this equation. Now go to the top equation. 3 minus 2, which is what? Negative 1 minus 1j I sub 2 plus V2. I will combine this with that.
So it's positive 1 minus negative 1?
Yep. Minus 2 plus 3 is plus 1. minus 1j. Now, let's add to it V2, which is what? 2 minus 2j I sub 2 equals 2, 4 angle 0. 2 and 1, that's 3. Is that a minus 3j? I sub 2 is equal to what? 24 angle 0 24 angle 0 divided by 3 negative 3j. If I push, I'll double check the number. As I said before, I'm not good with calculators. I'll double check it. That's what I got. But let me just one more time. 24 angle 0 divided by 3 comma negative 3. 5.66 angle 45. So what is V out? 2 times I sub 2. You multiply that by 2, and it's 11.31 angle 45. And their answer in the back is wrong. And the reason it's wrong, I can see it here on their solution. In place of V2, they put negative V1, which means they're saying V2 equals minus V1. Now if they're both entering the dot. Yeah. So if you get that one, I marked it wrong, see me after. I'll give you the points for it. So that's the solution to the last question.